video showing a car slamming into an officer in a hit and run in the Bronx. That officer in serious condition.
It appears to be quite purposeful. That's unacceptable.
Overnight, officers shot during...
For 38 years, David Dorn was a police officer in the city of St. Louis. No one ever accused Dorn of racism. He was black. He's dead now. He was murdered last night by the mob. His killing was streamed live on Facebook. Then the violence accelerated from there. In St. Louis alone, 4 other active duty police officers were shot last night. In Las Vegas, an officer took a bullet in the head. He's still in critical condition.
I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you. Okay. But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees because you have white privilege. So if they see that a white person is getting on their knees, that shows solidarity for the situation. And could you just please apologize for your white privilege? Just apologize.
I am. I'm trying to think of the right words to say because that's a big thing to say.
It's big. It comes from. It's large in this country.
I'm incredibly sorry.
And remember, these businesses seldom have insurance against looting or man-made disasters because the cost is high and the coverage is low. But amid the wreckage and debris of a looted Brooklyn deli came a very compelling voice that's gaining attention, an elderly and entrepreneurial African-American woman who offered this. Watch.
I work here part-time. Plus, I'm a part owner of this store. You said Black Lives Matter. Why don't you choke me? I'm black. Look what you did to my store. Look at the things you've done.
Good man.
Look.
The Black Lives Matter.
We've been here all night cleaning up. All night cleaning. Help me.
That's right.
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly.
You lied. You wanted to loot the store.
She ended by saying, this is a neighborhood. We're trying to build it up. You're tearing it down. Finally, Tucker, we should note the retired Minneapolis firefighter, an African-American who put his life savings into opening a sports bar in Minneapolis, only to have it burned down in the riots, has now raised $100,000 to get it opened. Tucker.
It'd be nice to spend more time celebrating people like that, I think. People who are trying hard and doing the right thing. Chris Gallagher, great to see you tonight. Thank you.
You too. Yep.
Care about your community. One of the best things you can do is help it recover from a disaster to make it clean and beautiful once again. We want to show you an inspiring piece of tape. 3 young women in Washington, D.C. tried to do that. They tried to clean up the graffiti that's all over the buildings here in Washington, all over our monuments. We should praise them for doing that. Instead, they were attacked for doing that. Watch.
Why are you guys removing Black Lives Matter's graffiti?
We're just trying to take it. Yeah, we tried over there and it wasn't coming off, but still none of it's coming off.
Well, why do you want that to come off?
Well, I don't. This is a federal building. Yeah, it's just a vandalism.
But so you don't care about Black Lives then?
That's not enough.
That's what this.
You certainly didn't care about Black Lives.
Not enough to leave up a message.
We don't disagree with the message, ma'am. It's just along the building. We're just trying to clean it.
Right. Not a great way to use your white privilege, ladies. Not a great. That's disgusting.
Well, Drew Brees is one of the biggest stars in the NFL, of course. He's also fairly famous for being a thoroughly decent human being. Brees donated $5 million to coronavirus relief efforts in Louisiana, and good for them. The press lauded him for it.
Drew, we love you.
Love you too.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, a lot more. He may be like one of the most perfect human beings because he's an awesome father and husband. He's a great friend to people. He loves his team. He's a great leader, and he loves his city.
Of course, he has flaws. We all do. In Brees' case, his flaw, and it could be a fatal flaw, is he loves the country where he was born and raised, America. So when he was asked his opinion of the national anthem protests, when the NFL resumes, the protests in which people kneel and degrade the country, Brees said this.
I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. It brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movements of the 60s, and everyone and all that has been endured by so many people up until this point. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not. We still have a long way to go. But I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is it shows unity.
Seems like a fair opinion, but it's no longer allowed. You are now required to disavow the nation of your birth, to attack your own country, or you can't live here. In Brees's case, that meant some moron on his team denounced him.
I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. Because while the world tells you that you're not worthy, that your life doesn't matter, the last place you want to hear from are the guys that you go to war with and that you consider to be allies and to be your friends.
So you can't be a, quote, ally unless you disavow your own country. This is insane. And the fact that anybody is going along with this, the fact that anybody is kneeling before the thugs, the mob, demanding you disavow your own nation is mind-boggling. Unfortunately, some publicist or consultant got to Brees, and he was basically forced to apologize for the crime of loving the flag and his country. But bowing to the mob never worked. It never does, which is why you should never do it. Stay courageous, stay strong, resist. You will not be rewarded for cowardice, ever. That's a natural law. Brees's apology is already being attacked as insufficient. Burgess Owens played in the NFL for years. He's a former Super Bowl champion. We're always grateful to have him on the show. Mr. Owens, thank you so much for coming on. You probably know much more than I do, but my impression, maybe I've been misled, is that Drew Brees is a pretty sincere, decent man. Why are they attacking him?
Well, he is a good man, and he gives back to his community. And I'll say this, what you're seeing here is exactly why President Trump will be reelected once again, as they were surprised last time. Americans don't like bullies. They don't like people who demand that we disrespect our flag, our country. I think what Drew did, he was spot on. His first statements was so spot on. I'm disappointed, of course, that he retracted that. But at the same time, every one of us have a certain part to play. And Drew's part right now is to make sure he does what he can to unify that part of the country. Those who understand who he is, they know he's not a racist. And at the same time, we have people like myself. I would call these people out for what they are. They're bullies, they're cowards, they're Marxists, period. And I'm one of those guys that will never, ever acquiesce or apologize for the pride of my country. And I'll say another thing. I will always say all lives matter. I don't care what the bullies say. And what we have to understand is that together, between the messages of those who truly do what they can to unify in a way that's more soft, and those of us who tell the truth, we'll win our country back. One thing for sure, we need to understand that we're under attack, and it's the evil of trying to destroy our middle class. If you understand that, that's right. You understand what this is all about. And you've spoken this before, but I lived in the middle class, Tucker. I grew up in it, and I saw how the leftists, the elitists, destroyed my middle class. And it went from 50% of business ownership down to 3.8%. It went from 50 to 60% of middle class during the days of segregation to 40%, and most of those are elitists, like the ones you saw on TV blasting out Drew. These guys are making $50 million a year, and they cannot stand and tell young people, this is how I did it. I was disciplined, I worked hard, I respected people, and I paid the price. Instead, they tell other people, you can't do it like I did because white people are not going to let you get it done. These are Marxists, they're enemies to our nation, and particularly those black leaders are enemies to my race. And it's time for us to stand up against these guys and say, we're not going to be used anymore by you people.
Well, exactly.
We're going to stand up, we're going to tell the people what it really is and get our country back and our young people to believe in our country.
If they can make you disavow your country, will they make you denounce your spouse, your parents, your children next? Probably. I'm serious. Don't go along with it. Burgess Owens, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Tucker.
Well, the push to he kneeled. Our leaders are kneeling before the mob. The atavistic ritual of self-abasement, of defeat. Suddenly, many are performing this ritual, including police around the country. The mob wants victory, but more than that, it wants the total humiliation of its enemies.
I work for Black Lives Matter.
I'm incredibly